President, Commissioner, the next CAP has to achieve a lot. It needs to maintain the diversity of our farms. Europe has strengths in different regions and on our farms.
Food security is created day by day, generation by generation. Food security means independence, full stop. No region, no farm can be left behind. Whether we're talking about agrarian farming or livestock, we need to look across all of the different types of farming. We need to particularly look at livestock farming. And we're doing a lot for creating protein crops and protecting the soil. But after 2026, if we do not steer all of this correctly, we are abandoning the farms that make all of this work. When we lose farm structure, then the farmer doesn't just lose an income, but it loses a sense of reality in the future.
Do you want to take it? A blue card from Molacic from seat 590, please.
Dziękuję bardzo. Pani poseł, pani reprezentuje kraj, który...
One second, we just need translation. Have you changed the channels on the desk? Thank you. Please.
Pani poseł, zwracam się do pani jako przedstawiciel...
Madam, you represent a country that supports the agreement with Mercosur. You represent a country that is in favor of a free trade agreement with Ukraine. Europe wants to import cheap food from Ukraine and Mercosur that will flood the European market. Your country's policy is going to destroy the common agricultural policy.
I represent farmers in my country who are very much in favor of equal standards. The farmers in my country are fighting to ensure that our standards are recognized, and that's why we're in intensive contact with our commissioner. Is that enough for you?
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Cristina Guana for 1 minute, please.
Grazie, Presidente. Thank you, President. Well, drought is really challenging us, and in fact, it is taking its toll to the tune of 50 billion in just 2022. 5 million farmers who have been brought to their knees because of a lack of water, and harvests have collapsed. Our soil has been degraded. Biodiversity loss is accelerating. Now, this is the new climate change normality in Europe, and you are now complicit in it today. Those who truly work the land and care for it are not recognized for that. Those who provide for us a living soil that retains water and the biodiversity that is necessary to produce food, which is a common good. This is what they're doing. These are our true farmers, the stewards of our future, and they must be supported. Now, in the near future, we will be introduced to the new proposals for the CAP. We need concrete, stable, accessible tools, and this strategy has a name: agroecology. Commissioner, let us stop chasing the interests of those who refuse to change and finally build the agricultural policy that protects us and protects those who protect us. Thank you.
Is Konstantinos Arvanitis for 1 minute, please.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, it's very important for our farmers and all citizens to have a strategic orientation of the common agricultural policy. For distribution of the European funds, I wouldn't propose to Mr. Weber and to you, Mr. Commissioner, to request the software of conscientiousness and sense of duty of Mr. Mitsotakis from Greece. The common agricultural policy is a basic tool for financing the production of food. But for us, the Greeks, men and women, and the European citizens of the South is a determining factor in order to face the enormous demographic problem. What common agricultural policy do we want?
We have to maintain a separate line of the budget of the Common Agricultural Policy so we don't reduce the budget. We need to change the direction of the funds and the policies of the Union related to the production and to encourage production without taking away funds in order to rearm. We have to take care to support mountainous island areas and to support the traditional methods of cultivation friendly for the environment and coastal fishing. We were against the Mercosur agreement, and Mrs. von der Leyen didn't take the approval for that from the European Parliament. We need an adaptation
for the climate for the fund. These are the proposals of the left.
Speaker is Daniel Buda for 1 minute, please.
Domnule comisar,
Commissioner, the CAP budget must remain a separate one.
It must in no way be diluted into other policies, and under no circumstances should it be cut. Touching the CAP budget today means weakening the very backbone of the European Union. This policy is not about subsidies.
It's about food safety and the future of European villages. And today, these villages are slowly dying. 800 farms disappear every day, endangering our food security. Today's young farmers no longer believe in us. If we cut the budget, we will accelerate the abandonment of European agriculture. Our villages will become open-air museums, and we will import pesticide-laden food from third countries. This is why I ask you firmly today and clearly, the CAP budget must remain separate, must be financed adequately, and it must be guaranteed post-2027. This is a red line, and who crosses this red line
is responsible for the breakup of Europe. Thank you.
Next speaker is Vytenis Andriukaitis for 1 minute, please.
Thank you so much. I will speak Lithuanian.
Commissioner, I'm really grateful to you for an excellent visit in Lithuania and an excellent dialogue with our farmers. I would like to testify to the fact that both you and our farmers are in favor of a progressive, sustainable, equitable and perspective agriculture. Thank you for all your initiatives, but we need a separate budget line.
Any fragmentation of the budget would weaken the CAP. We need a larger budget. Colleagues were right about our insufficient attention to our farmers. We should accord adequate financing in the next multi-annual financial framework. We also need to support young people. We need more innovations in agriculture in order to attract young people to the farming sector. We should also make equal all direct payments. It is an old promise. Commissioner, we have to do this because it is a matter of social justice. It is a matter of solidarity in Europe. Thank you.
1 minute, please.
Madam President, Commissioner, the CAP is in our DNA. It is a spirit. The spirit of the CAP is that of the First Nations of Europe that wanted to create an area of peace. Their spirit is the spirit of the CAP. Since 1962, this has been the spirit that has accompanied farmers in their lives with the guarantee of a fair standard of living in exchange for feeding the European people so as not to depend on third countries. Now the CAP choice is the Commission's choice is not to increase the CAP budget. That is against the spirit of the CAP. Instead, they're going to be financing the direct competitors of our farmers with 15 million euros being paid to South African wine farmers. That goes totally against the spirit of the CAP. You have revealed that your CAP policy is just making time and not moving forward.
Mr. Bellato, so we go on to Benoit Cassar for 1 minute, please.
Monsieur le Commissaire.
Commissioner, colleagues, investing in defense, yes, but farming is our main line of defense. No soldier can fight on an empty stomach.
Therefore, we have to have a solid farming policy and avoid nationalization of said policy. We must maintain a common policy so as to not weaken the internal market and our competitiveness. If we want to be able to motivate our young people to take up our farms, we need to have more income with more consistency amongst our farm policies and our trade policies. European standards are the highest in the world. Let us protect them and let us avoid unfair competition like environmental dumping. Reciprocity of our standards in free trade agreements is a non-negotiable. Let us come back to the community preference of the founding fathers so that we have an efficient farming system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Martin Häusling for 1 minute, please.
Colleagues, we need to spend our money better. That's what we've been saying for years. We've been just giving money in exchange for owning land, but that's not the point. We should be giving money to people who are doing something for the environment, for biodiversity. We need a strong second pillar. We need rural development. We must have healthy infrastructure in rural areas so that you can have traders, bakers making their lives there too. And also we need to encourage young people to take up farming. What do they need? They need capital and they need access to land. And above all, we need support for disadvantaged regions. That must be the aim of the CAP, and that must be what we work together to achieve. What we shouldn't be funding is intensive livestock rearing. What we shouldn't be funding is farming that's based on genetic engineering. We don't need patents on genetic engineering products. That's not the way forward. Commissioner, don't just listen to the farmers' associations. Listen to the results of the strategic dialogue, and that will take us forward, not backwards.
And the next speaker is Paulo do Nascimento Cabral for 1 minute, please.
Thank you, President. Commissioner, well, there's nothing more important for security and defence than putting food on the plates of Europe's citizens. We need to support our farmers who are all too often mistreated and disrespected. Now, Commission, you need to pass a clear message to the farmers in the rural world. Farmers provide food and a lot of other services, and they need to be incentivized rather than regulated. We need a robust budget, and 0.36% of GDP goes on this major public good. Attracting more people to the sector has to be a priority. We need to do that with research, innovation, and digitalization. But we do need European support. And I'll close with POSEI for the outermost regions. It hasn't been updated for more than 15 years. So we now need this support to be updated for the farmers of the Azores.
Please.
Domnule Comisar,
Commissioner, colleagues, the CAP after 2027 should first of all be fair. It should be a policy that's responsible towards all farmers. Thank you, Commissioner, for the talks we've had, and I hope you come to my country, Romania, and discuss directly with our farmers over there. Because here's what they want, and I represent them here. First of all, there's an unfairness, there's an imbalance between regions in the west, in the east, in the north, and the south of Europe, and this leads to less confidence in the European project. It's not just about incomes, it's about cohesion as well. And I think, Commissioner, we've seen very clearly that it's a red line for us. We need a standalone budget for CAP. We need generational renewal because farmers are getting older. We need to support small farmers with direct funding instruments. And of course, we should cut down on red tape. And I do believe, Commissioner, that we need to build a strong, viable, united European agriculture. But in order to do this, we need to place farmers at the center because they know best. Is Tone Diepeven for 1 minute, please.
Madam President, Commissioner, good morning, colleagues. European agriculture is all seized up. The Green Deal has paralysed it. What farmers need is not more ideology, but more room to create food security, to earn a living, and to freedom to farm. The idea of one big agricultural fund with more centralisation is not the solution. What we need is to cut back over-regulation, which is blocking innovation and stifling entrepreneurship. The key word is innovation also for agriculture, whether it's renewal, precision agriculture, new genomic techniques or other techniques that are still to be developed. We need to give more space, more leeway. We shouldn't be holding farmers back. I'm counting on the Commission to adapt the legislation as soon as possible so that innovation remains possible now and tomorrow. What farmers need is not some policy maze, but a clear and well-regulated framework. Only if we make these necessary changes will we be able to make them competitive, and only if we promise them a future can we expect young farmers to go into farming. Thank you.
Much. The next speaker is Jacek Ozdoba for 1 minute, please.
Dziękuję, szanowny panie komisarzu, szanowni.
Thank you very much. President, Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen. You will destroy European agriculture. Get your hands off the Polish farming system. Your idea of approving the Mercosur agreement will lead to a situation where we will be simply outcompeted. We have to discuss all of this. You are trying to kill European agriculture. So I'll say it again, hands off Europe's agriculture. If anyone has a different opinion,
I could say that we could soon be voting about Ursula von der Leyen's Commission. We will have to think about how we vote there if we are going to approve Mercosur. Let's hope that Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen does what she has to so she can keep her office, but I think it would be better if you were to leave. The speaker is cut off.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, when we speak about the future of agriculture, some suggest only viable professional farmers should receive EU funding, but I cannot agree, because in 2023, only 27% of Irish farmers met that definition. And I say so because I reject that approach, because that's where I'm from. I'm from the centre of a country. Arable farmland shares the landscape with peatland, which cannot be farmed. So part-time farmers are a part of the landscape. That is the way it is. So we have both an opportunity and a responsibility to secure their future, because when my late brother farmed that land, he also prepared cattle for the factory. He also was part of the food chain. He played his part. The CAP budget must be stabilised. We must look at this issue of investment with the same urgency as we do with the EU defence budget. And I must say we must return to the core purpose of CAP, supporting sustainable food production for consumers. Food security also means generational renewal, and I know you will deliver on this. But I say to you, new entrants and retiring farmers need strong targeted incentives at both EU and national level. And I say specifically a CAP package for new entrants that includes at least the minimum wage, industrial wage, so they will stay on the farm. Thank you very much.
Thanks. The next speaker is Per Holmgren for 1 minute, please.
Madam President, Commissioner. Drought, floods. There's no sector of Europe that is hit as hard by climate change as Europe's farmers. So it's clear that the Common Agricultural Policy must talk about the climate transition and adaptation to the climate change. Of course, it has to be about other things too, but first place, it has to be Europe's farmers. They are threatened with extinction. A huge proportion have disappeared over the last 15 years. So we need, what we've done in Europe is we have built up a farmer system where it's the chemical companies and the food companies that have made money, not the farmers. We need to ensure that we have a fossil fuel-free agricultural system, and those farmers that do make the transition should get extra resources. It's a question of the farmer's future, it's a question of the climate, it's a question of biodiversity, but it's also an issue of security policy from the perspective of food security. We can make this transition, and we can do it through a good CAP in Europe.
Next speaker is Peter Magyar for 1 minute, please.
Köszönöm a szót, elnök asszony, biztos úr. A TISZA csak olyan Thank you for giving me the floor. We can only support a proposal that will allow Hungarian farming to be sustainable. We can only support plans that will allow people to have affordable, healthy food and allow farmers a decent standard of living. We want a policy that protects Hungarian farmers from lower quality imports from outside. What we want is to have modern farming developing in Hungary as the party of small farmers. We want to protect our world-leading agriculture. We will not allow it to be destroyed by pests and disease, and we will not starve it of funds. We will only be able to support a policy that will have a separate budget, a full fund of its own with sufficient resources to do its job.
For 1 minute, please.
Thank you. The CAP is a key pillar when speaking about European food security, about our future of our production and the sustainability of agriculture. It plays a key role in maintaining the rural areas, but now all of this is under threat if the announcements of the Commission regarding merging the CAP with other financial instruments comes true. This is not a review or coordination. This is not a technical issue. This is a decision which, if carried out, will endanger our agriculturists and also our consumers. And this is all coupled with the Mercosur agreement, where the agriculture is linked to other sectors, and this threatens the sustainability of European agricultural production. So I appeal on the Commission not to endanger one of the most important policies for the European Union, and to secure a single and stable budget for the European agricultural policy, because we need it.
For 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioner, colleagues. The CAP must place farmers at the centre, not bureaucracy. Our farmers need less unnecessary red tape, less dogmatic rules, and they need more confidence, more trust. Let them focus on their core business, which is to provide us with the best possible products. We are calling for genuine support for innovation, new techniques like Renure and new genomic techniques, the NGTs, must be fully developed and applied, because that is what will make farming more sustainable and more efficient. Also, fair competition is essential. Products from outside the EU must meet the same standards as the ones our farmers produce. We have to be very careful about this in our trade policy. And we shouldn't ban plant protection products unless there are viable and affordable alternatives, because that would just be unfair. Finally, we need to get rid of the Green Deal. Green ideology is going to dismantle our farming, is going to bury our farmers. We need food security and an honest and hopeful prospect for the future.
Michael Wiesik, for 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. I welcome your proposals. I like the support for young, small and medium farmers, rural development and making farming more attractive, setting fair prices and fair rules for third countries, but I'm afraid it won't be enough. Let's realize what the real world looks like. In the real world, the climate change after 2027 will be worse than now. We will be facing more floods and droughts, more blackouts and lack of commodities. It's necessary to prepare for such situation, but we are not doing that. In contrary, we are weakening green measures for soil and biodiversity. We support status quo rather than new sustainable processes. We are making inevitable measures voluntary, weakening them in the process, which is damaging and dangerous. Lastly, lenient rules and confidence have often been abused for subsidy fraud. Slovakia has unfortunately bad experience with that. I'm worried that further loosening of rules might lead to a new wave of stealing and inefficient use of public European funds. Let's live in real world, please. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jessica van Leuven for 1 minute, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, Commissioner. The current form of the Common Agricultural Policy was started by Sikkel Mansholt, a Dutch visionary that reformed agriculture in Europe. And now we are at a crossroad for agriculture in Europe again. On Monday evening, with the vote in the Agricultural Committee, we sent a very strong signal to you, Commissioner. A clear signal for an independent, separate agricultural policy under the responsibility of the Agri Committee, for simplification and reduction of bureaucracy, for strengthening agriculture as a strategic sector for food security, for empowering farmers within the supply chain, for ensuring future for our young farmers, because those were the reasons that farmers took the streets. And we have taken their concerns very seriously. We listened to them, we stood up for them, but this is all now at stake. Losing a separate CAP budget threatens the survival of thousands of European family farms and puts European food sovereignty at risk. So, Commissioner, you are our only hope. Don't let this happen. The CAP is the very heart of the European Union. So let's refarm Europe together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Zaba Dümüter for 1 minute, please.
Hansen biztos úr kedvenc kifejezésével élve, van egy elefánt.
Commissioner, President. Well, Commissioner, you say, well, we hear all the time that there's an elephant in the room. And the real question is whether you seriously think that the agricultural budget should be reduced. We've heard about a reduction of 20%, and besides that, we've heard all sorts of fine words about support, about justice and fairness, but we all know exactly what that means in practice. It means that people who are currently receiving support will not receive it in future. The area payments are at risk, and we know that the concrete proposals will only arrive at a later stage. But, Commissioner, I wanted to ask you, is it true that agricultural funding will be brutally reduced, and if so, by how much?
Is Céline Imart for 1 minute, please.
Merci, Présidente. Thank you, President. Commissioner, the CAP are the roots and the wings of Europe. 60 years from its outset, it is all the more strategic, where we know that a food alarm is used by the powers of the world. It is a pillar and not just an adjustment line in an Excel table, and it will not survive a 15% decrease. Support for farmers should not be pitted against a building of roundabouts. You are the Commissioner for Farming, and you have, with the Green Deal and with the announcement of the Simplification, you have shown that you are smart with the cross-cutting approach that is different from the president of the Commission, who would like to save 5.4 billion from the LIFE program now, that is sapping our farmers and the protection of the environment. In my region, we have seen that there are demonstrations that are banned against law enforcement with Palestinian flags and LGBTQ flags. It would be much better if we use this money for our farmers.
So, dear colleagues, we have now reached Catch the Eye, and I have far too many requests. So I will have to choose, and I will favor those of you who have been present during the whole debate. And we will begin with Gabriel Mato, seat 35, please.
Gracias, Presidenta, querido.
Thank you, President. We all agree on a key message. Without agriculture, our future is at stake. Without an appropriate financial framework for it, if this is true of Central Europe, when it comes to the most remote regions like the Canary Islands, the situation is even more pressing. It's important for us to get affordable food and to be self-sufficient. This is a goal that we have to achieve, and to a large extent, we've been able to manage this. So we need to ensure that we adjust our financial framework for inflation and higher costs. We need to increase funds like POSEI to respond to the challenges. The path to follow is obvious. We need a strong CAP with enough money and less red tape, and a policy like POSEI, which means that the ultra-peripheral regions can still have a chance to continue their life.
The next speaker will be Sebastian Tynkkynen, seat 210, please.
Arvoisa puhemies,
Madam President, Commissioner, the Common Agricultural Policy is supposed to concentrate on ensuring food production can be profitable. But what is the priority of the EU in the text? Is it food security? Or is it incomes for farmers? No, it's about the Green Deal. It's about using the agricultural sector as an instrument for ideological climate protection measures. In the Commission's text, you can't read more than 2 sentences without hearing something about the Green Deal. The Green Deal is no advantage for the farmers, it's a burden. And this burden is being borne by the shoulders of all European citizens, not just the shoulders of the farmers. We'll see less food production and increasing prices. After 2027, the CAP needs to set the right priorities. Let cows and fields grow and get rid of the green stuff.
Thank you very much, President. Commissioner, if there's one thing that we can say about the CAP over recent years, we have seen that it benefits the big corporate farms to the detriment of our small farmers. And that's the case with the data from Galicia. Since 2009, 2,000 farms have closed. There's been an increase in bureaucracy, lack of flexibility, and it's been tough for generational renewal. So no surprises. In Galicia, we have seen that there is cellulose factories and putting an end to the most productive farmlands in my region. So we would like, and then there's a Mercosur agreement, which is going to be devastating for our farmers. What future can we have if we don't have a CAP that has enough funds, where it's reduced for weapons, less weapons, more farming?
Zakaria, seat 846, please. Micro for seat 846, please.
CAP strangles small farms and subsidies makes them into a trap. Instead of supporting production, it creates dependencies and dead ends. The farmers abandon their earth because of the policy of the European Union. And that's not enough for you. You also bring the agreement of Mercosur. In Greece, the money of the common agricultural policy were used to buy votes and were badly used, the funds given to their own party through false declarations with the participation of members of OPKP, which is the National Agency of Management and Payment of the Funds of the Common Agricultural Policy. The European prosecutor uncovered the fraud. 4 ministers resigned. 415 million is the fine for the people. The real farmers pay for the price, seeing the money that they were entitled going to the party. Europe has to support the real farmers and has to punish the thieves, those who forged the documents, and the government mechanism of Mitsotakis.
Next speaker will be Nina Kabari, seat 340, please.
Thank you, President, Commissioner. If you're fighting a war, you don't cut your defence budget. If you're battling wildfires and drought, you don't slash your resilience or preparedness funds. And if you're serious about building a sustainable, secure food system, one that pays farmers fairly and protects rural life, you should not cut the common agricultural policy. Yes, the CAP puts food on our tables, but it does so much more. Farmers are the guardians of our land. They are the first hit by climate change. They remain the foundation of our food security. The CAP is not a budget line, it's a lifeline. It funds greener, smarter practices. It keeps families on their farms across generations. As I've said many times before here, we need a ring-fenced CAP. We need an increased CAP, and we must invest in our young farmers, because without them, without the next generation, there is no future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker will be Arkadiusz Mulaczyk, seat 590, please.
Dziękuję bardzo. Panie komisarzu, po 20 latach rozszerzenia Unii Europejskiej.
After 20 years since the enlargement of the EU, we are dealing with systematic inequality between the old and the new member states. The direct payments for farmers in Western Europe are higher than those for farmers in Poland, for example. That is unfair. And we would also like to fight back against the fact that we're signing agreements like Mercosur, which is very unfair to Polish farmers. Through this agreement, many food products will enter Europe at a low price but of poor quality, without controls. And this is going to be bad for Poland, bad for Ukraine. This is going to destroy agriculture in the EU. If you let this happen, we will see this as a conscious decision made by the EU.
We will continue catch the eye.
Thank you very much. It is important, Commissioner, for the MFF to have a strong CAP with direct payments specifically to small farmers, family farms, and mountainous areas. It's also important for us to maintain the rural development pillar, which is essential for regions like mine in Galicia. I also welcome the fact that we're going to have a simplified, less bureaucratic CAP. The EP has requested that time and time again. Thank you, Commissioner. And also, it should be adapted to each area. So satellite monitoring that avoids in situ controls could be counterproductive. In Galicia, where we have small farms, we have seen that there have been major errors in monitoring. That means that farmers have had allegations brought up against them, and then they have to defend, and that's more bureaucracy. Therefore, we need to have a flexible CAP. Biodiversity islands are not going very well with the climate and the small farms in my area. Thank you.
Ms. Walsh.
Commissioner, in just a few days we'll know what the Commission's proposal for the next CAP will look like. And I want to stress, like many colleagues here, how critical it is not to reduce our support to areas that depend on rural development funding. Let's take young farmers. They're struggling to enter farming and make a real living, yet they're the ones that put food on our tables and will do so for decades to come. Let's take women. Despite their tremendous contribution to our rural areas, they continue to face challenges in accessing financing, land and training. And third, let's take the LEADER programme. Their community-led projects are essential for local development and rural employment, but they see their funds being threatened. And I agree with what my colleague Mr. Buda said earlier. Without proper funding and effective incentives for them, we risk turning our rural areas into museums. And we cannot afford to leave them behind and still expect a thriving rural economy. So let's help them. Let's show that being risk-averse is not right now. Let's show them that we're there for them. Thank you, Commissioner. Please.
Ja, sehr geehrter Kommissar Hansen, lieber Christoph,
Commissioner Hansen, Christoph, in a week's time, the time has come and you'll present the proposal for the CAP after 2027. Since last autumn, there have been all sorts of rumours about what this could look like. Our farmers face huge challenges. We have heard enough about those, but we cannot leave them alone to face this. So we need a strong, independent agriculture budget with enough resources behind it. Agriculture, not defence, is one of the hearts of EU policy, and we need to simplify. I was elected as a farmer to cast my vote here in the European Parliament and raise my voice. I'm not in favour of a restructuring of agricultural policy. As farmers, we have shown that when we do not agree, that we're not to be messed with. Thank you. The next speaker is Nicolau Alovanos.
Rusfetia, exagora.
Buying outs, clientelism in the Organization for Payment of the Funds of the European Union, PKP, and the Common Agricultural Policy is making the farmers kneel. And the New Democracy and the previous governments who implemented these policies, finally the funds are separated from the agricultural production. We have scandals everywhere in the European Union. In Greece is a scandal where politicians, members of the government, various people are involved, and they try to legalize the Common Agricultural Policy that was against the people. And we want to see who are responsible for those who are involved in this scandal. And they have to return the money to the farmers who are suffering under the Common Agricultural Policy of the European Union and the anti-farmers policy of the government.
Thank you very much. That concludes Catch the Eye. Commissioner Hansen to close for the Commission.
Grazie, Presidenta. Honourable members, let me first of all start by thanking you for your thoughtful contributions that on the broader lines I share and the entire Commission shares. And I would like to particular as well give again a thanks to Carmen Crespo and all the people that have worked together with you to get the report done by this Monday in order to be able as well to take your input on board. And I think it is very important, as I said, that I fully share many of the reflections voiced here, especially the call for a strong CAP able to deliver on multiple economic, social and environmental challenges. I quoted in the beginning Sico Mansholt, and this has been repeated as well by colleague Jessica van Leuven, and I think also Bernd Jan Ruyssen mentioned our treaty obligations. And I think these treaty obligations ensure food security, ensure a fair income for our farmers, but ensure as well affordable food for our consumers is more important than ever. And I think what we have to say as well, you can't win a war on an empty stomach, and you can't build a continent on an empty stomach. And therefore I believe that we are on the same idea that the identity of the common agriculture policy needs to be maintained. Many of you mentioned that we need to maintain as well the big C of the common agriculture policy for the common in that. Also, I believe all of you share that we need a coherent toolbox for the first and the second pillar obligations. I think rural development depends as well very pretty much on the common agriculture policy, and that needs to be taken into account. Mr. Flanagan also mentioned that the structure of the common agriculture policy currently is not too bad, and that we have to build on the successes and fix maybe what is not working ideally. And that is why I always pledge we need an evolution of the common agriculture policy and not a revolution. And this is largely shared as well by the ministers when I meet them at the Agri-Fish Council. Also, what most of you said is that we need the appropriate financial firing power in order to deal with the many challenges. The challenges have not become fewer over the last more than 6 decades. I think they have become higher. We face huge geopolitical challenges from the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine and the consequences, but as well from trade tensions with other economies, but as well climate change and environmental challenges. I think these challenges have become bigger, and therefore I also believe that we need to keep up the support for our farmers, as well the financial one. But as you know, whatever the Commission proposal will be, it will heavily depend on what the Member States will be willing to contribute to that budget. So I think that is very important to remind and to work on that as well. Another shared point that is, I heard from many of you, and that is as well central in the vision for the future of agriculture and food, is the challenge of the generational renewal, because currently less than 12% of our farmers in the European Union are below the age of 40, and the average age is above 57 years of age. In some member states it's better, in some it's even worse. So I think that is a huge challenge that we need to take into account. But when we speak about that, there will as well be discussions that may be as well more painful. Some of you ask for more support financially for the young farmers. Well, if we give more to one, we have to take it from somewhere. So this discussion will, of course, to be addressed. That is very clear. A fairer distribution, many of you mentioned it as well, but that when it becomes fairer, there will always be winners and losers, and that is something that we need to address together. What I will do as well in autumn, I will present a strategy for the generational renewal, and many of you have as well mentioned it's not only the EU policy, it is as well initiatives that need to be taken at national level. They need to work together when it comes, for example, to pension systems, etc., and as well a better support for the young farmers. I think there is a lot that can be done in synergies between European and national politics. So this is very important to me. It is very dear to my heart, because we can always speak about food security, but if there is nobody left anymore to do it, well, then we have the problem, and then we will face the dependency, and I will never want to be dependent on somebody else outside the European Union on the quantity and the quality of our food that we consume 3 times a day, and I think that has to be acknowledged. Also, when it comes to challenges such as climate change and environmental protection, I don't see the farmers as the problem. They are the first victims of climate change, but I also say they are our best line of defense. So that's why I want the farmers to be part of the solution and not of the problem, and therefore it is our common duty to enable our farmers to be part of the solution, to design policies that are up for the task, to give as well incentives that are up for the task and sufficiently attractive for the farmers, that allows them to combine a productive agriculture with protecting our resources. I think that will be the key challenge, and therefore I would like to work with you together, and your own initiative report is very helpful in that sense as well. And I, of course, hope as well for a strong budget for the common agriculture policy to be able to tackle the many challenges that we are facing, and therefore I'm counting on your support, and I will continue my fight in that direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. That closes this debate. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the European Citizens' Initiative on Cohesion Policy for the Equality of the Regions and Sustainability of the Regional Cultures. So let's give the floor straight away to one of the authors for the Regi Committee, Mr. Ventola.
Thank you, President, colleagues, Commissioner. Now, this European Citizens Initiative, well, this is a wonderful instrument that citizens can use to advance initiatives, ideas, suggestions in terms of the legislative process that we need to deal with the Commission and the Council. On the 31st of March this year, more than 1,270,000 signatures were put to this from 8 different member states, and they proposed a number of different proposals in cohesion policy to have more cohesion in our regions that are sometimes surpassed by other regions, also because of linguistic minorities or cultural aspects, the identities of each individual region. As I said, this would be an extraordinary instrument because it's really the pillar or one of the pillars of the European Union, because it means that the citizens can express their views. Now, we have the duty to use and look at this initiative. On the 25th of June of 2025, the Regi Committee with Libby, Cult, and Petty opened a debate. There have been a number of different hearings, and in fact, decision makers were a part of this. There were some paths forward that could be useful for feeding into our thoughts on cohesion policy. Today, our debate is another occasion not only to listen to the Commission, or also to look at what, I don't want to say the conclusions might be, but to have a lively debate as to what the right way forward is to foster more equality and lift inequality. That is one of the objectives of the cohesion policy. And I should also like to state that it would be a way to lay down the conditions so that all citizens can choose their own future and their own way of living and not be restricted to leaving their native lands. I'd like to conclude. This is an extraordinary tool for democracy that makes our European Union all the more important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next speaker, also an author, is Mr. Johnsa. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, President. We are very pleased that 1,270,000 European citizens have signed up to this European Citizens Initiative. This initiative expresses the idea that the EU is at its strongest when it is diverse, not only linguistically diverse, but also regionally diverse. The Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union talks about these kinds of issues, but regions face a number of different issues, such as demographic challenges and erosion of local cultures. This endangers the cohesion of the EU and of the single market. This initiative calls upon the European Commission to take steps to ensure equality among regions. We're particularly talking about regions that are in a difficult position, that face a series of different problems simultaneously. It's a question of regions which have cultural, geographical or economic challenges. It's a question of their identity. It's a question of regional traditions. It's a question of the cultural and social inheritance of Europe. It's also a question of sustainable development and support for local economies, and support, indeed, for demographic development in the regions. We also have to think about direct democracy in Europe. This citizens' initiative is not supposed to be a divisive one. It's supposed to unite people. It's a question of equality. Equality with regard to EU policy. Cohesion policy has to respect this mosaic of cultures. Thank you very much. Commissioner Labib, on behalf of the Commission.
Thank you, Madam President. Honourable members, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. Cultural and linguistic diversity, respect for the rights of people belonging to minorities, these are founding values of the European Union, as well as the value of participatory democracy. It is in this light that the Commission is carefully examining this citizens' initiative. Any action we take must be in line with the competences conferred by the treaties, while matters outside those competences remain the responsibilities of the Member States. Within these limits and the framework set by the registration decision, the Commission is exploring if further measures are necessary to address the concerns raised by the initiative. Cohesion policy is Europe's investment policy for regions, cities and rural areas. To give Europeans the right to stay in the place they call home, ensuring access to job opportunities and public services, and enhancing the quality of life for EU citizens. The European Regional Development Fund already invests around 22 billion euros in inclusive growth and the integration of marginalized groups. Together with 2 billion euros from the European Social Fund Plus, which includes support for communities with specific linguistic and cultural characteristics. A further 5.2 billion euros are being invested in culture and heritage initiatives. In delivering these actions, cohesion policy follows the shared management principle, which gives member states, regional and local authorities key roles in the design and implementation of cohesion policy programs. One of our key principles is partnership, which requires the meaningful involvement of stakeholders, including civil society and organizations representing marginalized groups throughout the program life cycle. We also pay particular attention to the Charter of Fundamental Rights, including Article 21, which prohibits discrimination based on membership of a national minority. So cohesion policy already addresses many of the concerns raised by this initiative. And in fact, since this initiative was first discussed many years ago, we have strengthened provisions on non-discrimination. Our current legal framework requires compliance with the Charter of Fundamental Rights in the implementation of the funds. Effective mechanisms for compliance with the Charter are precondition for funding, setting up appropriate measures to prevent discrimination at every stage of the programs, in preparation, implementation, monitoring, reporting, and evaluation. Furthermore, managing authorities must establish and apply transparent and non-discriminatory criteria and procedures for the selection of individual operations, with arrangements in place to ensure the effective examination of complaints. In conclusion, we believe that these measures in place, including measures implemented since the Citizens' Initiative was introduced, go a large way to addressing these concerns. But the Commission is committed to the principles of non-discrimination and participatory democracy, so we are examining if further measures are necessary. We very much welcome the Parliament's input and support, of course. Thank you.
Grazie, grazie alla commissaria Labib. E ora...
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Labib. Let's start our debate. The first speaker is Mr. Winkler.
Köszönöm szépen, elnök asszony, köszönöm szépen, biztos asszony.
Thank you, Madam President. I support cohesion policy, the idea of regions being treated equally, and I also support the aims of the initiative, and I call on you to do the same. This initiative, the Citizens' Initiative, comes from the Lisbon Treaty, and it's a way of bringing people together. At a time of war, the Union needs that ability to bring people together even more. We need to bring our resources closer to the people, and indigenous and autochthonous minorities need to be put in a better position with these resources. So I support the initiative and call on the Commission to create legislative acts along those lines. The aim of cohesion policy is to rebalance prosperity around the EU. And it should also be there to fill gaps across borders, as it were. One of the foundations of the cohesion policy is the principle that nobody should be left behind. as Europe moves forward. And regions within member states and between member states need to be interlinked to be able to benefit from cohesion funding. Cohesion policy should also live up to the expectations of citizens who expect regions to be treated equally and cultures to be represented equally.
L'onorevole Agius Saliba, prego.
Mr. Agius Saliba.
President, colleagues, the European Citizens Initiative is a powerful reminder that subsidiarity is a core principle of the European Union, and when it comes to the role of our citizens that are affected by the decisions that we take, and when funds that are allocated to cohesion is more crucial than ever before. And today, I'm speaking from the perspective of the smallest member state in the European Union, Malta. We face multiple challenges: double insularity, demographic vulnerability, and unequal access to opportunities, especially the European single market. So the opportunities and for small member states like Malta are crucial so that we can protect our regions that have different cultural and linguistic and ethnic characteristics. So financing local voices and the protection of Europe's rich diversity needs to be central in our cohesion policy. This initiative is an important contribution to our European cohesion policy: justice, dignity, tangible progress for all regions, regardless of their size or status. Thank you.
Mrs. Gall is the next speaker. Madam President, this European Citizens Initiative is to be supported, and I have been following these issues for the last 12 years. Unfortunately, the Commission has been doing absolutely everything possible to try and stymie this initiative. My father comes from a region of Romania which requires special attention, because this region, like many others in Europe, face issues such as young people moving away because they feel they have no future perspectives there. Cohesion policy should have been able to overcome these issues, to support these ethnic and other minorities, which constitute 50 million people. Unfortunately, that has not been what the Commission has done. Instead, it seems that the Commission is simply not interested in diversity. It's not interested in different cultures. It's not interested in allowing them to maintain their cultural traditions and ensuring that they could earn a livelihood in those regions. So we have seen quite a lot of issues recently. Recently there was a salt mine that was flooded and 1 million people have been affected. So that's why we are calling for better cohesion policy.
Grazie.
Mrs. Sperner.
Thank you, President, Commissioner, colleagues. The ECI that we're discussing today raises an issue that thousands have brought to us with strength and conviction. European instruments must be built to support territories better, specifically for the inland areas, the hinterland. And we know that the Commission has instruments, for example, partnership, non-discriminatory clauses, and cultural heritage. All of these tools mean that we can protect the distinctive cultural and linguistic realities. If we look at our regional realities, it's not just an economic tool, but it is a cultural tool that assists in filling gaps and making sure that we have equal development and quality of life. And so strengthening the instruments that we have, simplifying procedures, enhancing the realities as a resource, that means that we would have real cohesion that is decentralized and that is based on shared responsibility. The work that we need to continue to do is to be vigilant, to have a better homogeneous application so that no territory is left behind. With sustainable economic growth and respect for cultural specificities, then we will be able to have a stronger, more inclusive Europe. The MFF post-2027 will have to factor in these demands, making cohesion all the more closer to the citizens and to their identities. Thank you.
Facoltà ora di intervenire l'onorevole Garcia.
The next speaker is Mrs. Garcia Ramírez van der Valle.
Grazie, Presidenta. Dear Commissioner, beste collega's.
As Spanish by birth, I have experienced the transformative power of the cohesion policy of the EU, investing in every region so that every European has a fair chance at a better life. I have seen the importance as well of minority languages for your sense of identity. I'm a convinced European, and I am convinced that we can do more for both of these things. We can strengthen our cohesion policy so that Europeans have the right to move around, but they also have the right to stay where they feel rooted, where they feel at home, and that the question of minority languages can be integrated in the legislation of the EU. Member states ought not to continue to ignore recommendations of the Council of Europe if we were to integrate the conventions on minority languages and minority rights in EU legislation. The rights of minorities and cohesion should go together. So I call on the Commission to take our citizens' concerns seriously.
Thank you very much. I'd like to give them now to Mr. Prebilic, please.
Thank you very much. Spoštovani, ta pobuda je namenjena zaščiti regionalnih.
Thank you very much. Now, we need to be protecting regional identities, and that's the subject of this initiative. But we have a more important subject to discuss. Mrs. von der Leyen wants to cut down cohesion policy funds. Now, cohesion policy is one of the great success stories of the EU. It reduces inequalities. It ensures economic cohesion. So how can we talk about a Europe of solidarity when some children in our regions have no access to the internet? Other regions where children can enjoy all of the advantages of the internet age. This is what cohesion is about. Equal opportunities for everyone, no matter where they live. If this money is going to be redirected, I think this would be a major mistake. These resources are a promise. They are a promise that no region will fall behind. We need more resources, not less. And we need more cooperation in the regions and between countries, because they know the needs on the ground better than anyone else.
Please. Thank you. Ms. Palmisano, please.
Prego.
Go ahead. Ms. Palmisano is not in the room, therefore move to the next speaker.
Frau Vorsitzende, meine verehrten Kollegen, europäische Bürgerinitiative.
European Citizen Initiative sound good, but what's behind this? Who pays for this? We hear words like green and sustainable coming from these. This is all, from the torture chamber of ideology. And how do you get a million signatures? I mean, there are 4 million citizens in my region, but difficult to get a million together. We're talking about regions having access to EU funds, but since when does the Commission respect national differences? That is the question, because really what they want to pose is a uniform European state. We've got funds that are so complex we don't know who can apply for them and how the money can be obtained. So my suggestion would be we should have citizens' initiatives, direct election of the President of the Commission by the citizens. We ought to throw von der Leyen out of office today and tomorrow have a genuinely democratic representation of the European citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jarzynski, please.
Köszönöm, elnök asszony, tisztelt biztos.
Thank you very much. Thank you, President, colleagues. Well, I experienced in my childhood what it meant to be part of a region where you speak a language different from that of the surrounding country. I've come from Transcarpathia as a Hungarian speaker, but I also know the kind of strength that you can draw from that experience, a concept of belonging together. 1.4 million European citizens have signed the Citizens' Initiative that shows how much people care about this. I share the objectives of this Citizens' Initiative. Cohesion policy should leave no one behind, and we need to reduce regional inequalities. I see a lot of potential in studying this initiative properly. There should be a proper legal recognition of these regions, and that could pave the way for a more inclusive, more diverse cohesion policy. I am convinced that cultural and linguistic diversity of regions has to be supported. Resources need to be allocated where they're needed, and these regions should not be an exception. There needs to be a guarantee that they have access to European resources.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dossempere, please. Thank you very much, President. Commissioner, the European Union is the union of all of our cultures, of all of our heritage that makes our land the richest in the world. However, in small regions, we know that culture, traditions, rituals, songs, they're all at risk, and yet they constitute the cultural wealth and heritage of the European Union, and we can't allow this to be lost. So the best safeguard for regions is cohesion policy. Commissioner, however, cohesion policy that is now more than ever at risk with the incoming MFF proposal. We need to be able to strengthen cohesion funds to protect our cultural heritage that is at risk in many of our regions, and we cannot allow for there to be a loss of cohesion policy or it be diluted in a single fund per state. Cities and regions must continue to be the backbone of cohesion policy, modernized, decentralized, and adapted to the new challenges the EU faces. Because were we to lose culture, that would be a loss of the European Union as a whole. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Rouget, please.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam President, Madam Commissioner, colleagues, adapting the EU Cohesion Fund to changing times is a legitimate aim. We are very much aware of the importance of this because we have outermost regions, overseas territories in France that are at once suffering from insularity and remoteness, and the value of their cultural heritage is an asset for France, and people are not sufficiently aware of all of this. The cohesion policy should pay greater attention to these regions. The adaptation to the regulatory framework as proposed by Mr. Fito is a step in the right direction, but the principle of solidarity between regions cannot solely be achieved by systematic transfers from net contributing countries to net beneficiary countries to the detriment of our own struggling regions. When it comes to rule of law conditionality, which punishes whole peoples by freezing funds for ideological reasons, is an unacceptable diversion of the true aim of the cohesion policy, which is to reduce disparities in development. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Roger, card for you, if you want, yeah. Da parte dell'onorevole Garcia Ermita.
Ms. Garcia.
Thank you, Chair. I will be speaking in English. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, colleague, for your intervention. I appreciate your concern with cohesion policy, and I really appreciate you mentioning the outermost regions, because outermost regions are one of the most affected regions by climate change. And as the group of the Patriots, it's very surprising to see that you're so interested in the well-being of the outermost regions, also in France, but not the well-being of outermost regions when it comes to protecting them from climate change, which the European Union is trying to do. So could you please explain how do you see the difference they are working? Thank you.
Écoutez, vous me voyez bien, désolé.
Well, I'm awfully sorry, but as a French citizen, I speak and understand French, and I'm afraid I didn't understand your question.
Yeah. Okay. You can repeat. Yes.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the opportunity to ask the colleague the same question. I asked you to put the thing on, but I will repeat. I was very encouraged by your intervention because I see that you do care a lot for our outermost regions and the role of the European Union in protecting our outermost regions, including the French outermost regions. But I also see that climate change is one of the biggest threats to the well-being of outermost regions, also the French outermost regions. So I was very curious to understand, given your political grouping and what you're doing to fight our fight against climate change, why do you want to protect them from a cohesion policy perspective, but you don't want the European Union to protect your outermost regions from a climate change perspective? Thank you.
Écoutez, s'agissant...
Well, when it comes to climate developments, let me say something about the specific nature of tropical climate, which often is where we find our remote French overseas territories, whether it's in the Indian Ocean or in the Caribbean. I have noticed that European standards are not appropriate really for these climes, in particular with regard to agriculture or fisheries policy. Commissioner Fito has made announcements that go in the right direction, and I'm grateful to him for that, and I would like to encourage him to continue on that path.
Next speaker, Onorevole Pelletier.
Ms. Pelletier, please.
Culture. Regional culture. Well, these are sad words that translate the cold derision of Brussels for the real identity of nations. Well, after wintry months in the corridors of a rootless institution, I think you should come and visit the greatness of France. You should listen to Espérance, a small girl, who takes you through our visits to Saint-Bernard, with the memories of Joan of Arc, the great cathedrals that translate the eternal values of France. You'll see the Mont Saint-Michel, Nimes, the Hospice de Beaune, you see Notre Dame rebuilt, or the castle at Chambord. You'd see the heritage of France, the Europe that we love, and that is that of civilization. Yes, everything could be reconciled when we see the treasures of our forefathers. France is not a regional culture. France is the elder daughter of the beauty of the world.
Onorevole Streit.
Mr. Streit, please.
Thank you, Madam President. This citizens' initiative offers us an opportunity to showcase the treasures of our regions. That's our cultural and geographical heritage. Just think of the wine routes in the Rhineland-Palatinate, Westerwald, to the Moselle, the Eifel, and many more. These are treasures which are also sustainable tourism destinations. We need more of these. We need more tourist destinations with the support of the EU. In the Palatinate and throughout Germany, because we have great untapped tourist potential to develop. Of course, not everything that glitters is gold, but we have so many beautiful places that we can be proud of, and we should let these stars shine out. I think with the involvement of citizens on the ground in these localities, I look forward to developing such initiatives, because I think sustainable tourism is an important goal for the 21st century.
Thank you very much. Ms. Function, please.
Thank you, President. I would like to congratulate those who supported this initiative. The European Union talks a lot about diversity, but when it comes to languages and language diversity, we're very weak in this area. The situation in Ireland is such that our national language is not being widely used because of the influence of imperialism. It seems that the European Union nor Ireland recognise the particular traits of these regions as well as their advantages and disadvantages. This initiative has drawn the attention of Europe to regions such as our Gaeltacht, Irish-speaking regions in Ireland, and we would like to welcome this. Cohesive funding can be used as a tool to strengthen our Gaeltacht communities and to create a better future. And I hope this initiative will help create a new approach which will support our Gaeltachts, increase their cultural and other possibilities which exist. Thank you.
Nurbush. Thank you. Mr. Schnubush, please.
Thank you, President. Ladies and gentlemen. Well, I come from a region where national minorities are particularly protected. Their ethnic, cultural and linguistic specificities are worth protecting. They are among the 340 national minorities with 100 million people who contribute to the culture of Europe. They are real diversity and not marching around with some kind of rainbow flag. The idea of this European Citizens Initiative is intended to have national minorities better protected in cohesion policy. It's a scandal that the Commission rejected a similar citizens' initiative 4 years ago. Whether we're talking about the Hungarian minority in Romania or the German minorities in Silesia or South Tyrol or Transylvania, these cultural treasures must be protected and promoted. It's the promise of the EU to create greater equality and not just hot air. By the way, the country in Europe which does most to destroy national minorities' rights is the Ukraine. The Ukraine, therefore, does not belong in the EU.
Thank you. Mr. Panayotou, please.
The European Union wants to take money from its development funds and use it for war. Yes, my friends, it's true. The European Union intends to take money from its cohesion policy, which accounts for 30% of its total budget. This budget is meant for the development of Europe's poorest region, but they will use part of it for defense, which essentially means war. In fact, the reason why we're here today in the European Parliament debating about it is because of an initiative signed by more than 1.2 million European citizens who have got together to give a clear message to us, the European politicians. They want our cohesion policy to focus on the development of our regions and the preservation of their culture. But here comes the European Commission, and instead of listening to its citizens, it proposed to use its cohesion funds for rearm and war. I will be very clear with my message. Forget about using our money for warmongering. Be more creative. Thank you. I love you all.
Grazie, onorevole Buda.
Thank you. Mr. Buda, please.
Dear colleagues, Commissioner, the European Union was built on the principles of solidarity and equality. The cohesion policy aims to reduce disparities between regions based on objective economic and social needs and not on other criteria. I have taken note of the initiative calling for special treatment, but I don't think that European funds should be granted based on national or identity criteria. Europe means unity in diversity. Regions need support in order to fight poverty, isolation, or lack of infrastructure, regardless of language or religion. The cohesion policy shouldn't be turned into an instrument of fragmentation, of creating privileged regions where belonging to a particular minority counts more than the real needs of the population. National minorities undoubtedly need a legal framework that allows them to preserve their national cultural identity. And I am pleased that today my country, Romania, is an example of good practice at international level. Education in the languages of national minorities and access to decision-making bodies, including at government and regional level, are just some examples. Commissioner, we need to say something very clearly. We need a cohesion policy that should not be diluted into other policies. We need to properly fund it in order to reach all regions of the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heide, please.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioner. United in diversity, that is the motto underpinning the EU, just as cohesion is and must remain the heart of European policy. It shouldn't be based solely on economic indicators. The EU should reach its citizens and therefore has to engage with cultural and linguistic and historic specificities. This citizens' initiative focuses on regions who have historically rooted cultural or linguistic or religious identities that don't have sufficient political representation or administrative power. So rightly, this initiative is calling for them to have access to EU support. And the Eurobarometer confirms the importance of this. 79% of European citizens who are familiar with EU-supported projects consider them to be positive for their region. And nearly 2/3 of citizens are calling for EU investments to go to all regions. So I think this is a clear mission for the Commission. Cohesion policy should be targeted fairly and cultural diversity should be sensitively promoted.
Mr. Tolassi, please. Madam President, colleagues, the European Commission has yet again shown that it is unable to reply to outermost regions and the needs of regions specifically. We have cohesion, and yet outermost regions are the forgotten parts of Europe. And the rigid, uniform approach ignores the specificities of these places. Structural funds to fill in the gap of how far away they are, or ways to preserve their unique identity within the context of globalization. The Commission has a lot of good words, but yet there is a chronic underfunding and economic lagging, and we should have audacious measures for the development and the dignity of these areas. We needed this ECI and the Patriots to use this adaptation right and to flag it up. Archipelago EU would be a regional policy that would be ambitious in favor of culture and creation. Europe should be a Europe of all of its regions and not just of its capitals. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Junco Garcia, please.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen, what's the point of having the most ambitious cohesion policy in the world if governments don't execute this? Look at Spain. Of the more than 36 billion we benefited from in this period, the government has only spent or has only requested 2.7% and has spent nothing. These are figures from the Bank of Spain. So our regions are losing services, our provinces are hemorrhaging population, while the money is just sleeping in some coffer somewhere. This is an insult to citizens and to the principles of the Union. The problem is not that we don't have money, but we don't have a good government. We have incompetence and a neglect of the regions. Commissioner, I call on you to put pressure on the Spanish government to activate the implementation mechanisms immediately for the cohesion policy. The cohesion policy only makes sense if it ends up with the citizenry. So it's up to governments to get to work to make sure that this comes to pass.
Mohnkuchen, Toleranz.
There are lots of expressions that we associate with Silesia, which is situated in Poland. And there are 600,000 Silesians who state that they speak mostly German. However, their home country, Poland, does not protect them properly. Bilingual road signs only appear after a lot of fighting, and it's very hard to get German tuition in schools. European cohesion policy should help supporting German language teaching and ensuring bilingual infrastructure. This needs to be assured so that the cultural diversity of Europe is not lost. The Polish treatment of Silesian Germans should be set as a model for the rest of Europe. So,
we have a blue card for you from colleague Mularczyk.
Szanowna koleżanko, jestem niezwykle zdumiony.
Dear colleague, I am very surprised at what you said. You're worrying about a few thousand Silesians in Polish Silesia. They have access to their language. We have 1 million Poles working in Germany, helping Germany to become more prosperous. Do these Poles have the right to speak Polish and to learn Polish in German schools? Are they allowed to have dual linguistic names? Also, you have stolen, during the Second World War, Polish cultural heritage with the Goering Decree. So perhaps you could answer my questions about that.
Ja, vielen Dank für die Frage.
well, thank you very much for that question. Well, why am I not surprised by being asked that question? I think there needs to be a clear distinction between migration to a new country and a minority that has lived in a region for centuries. That's a big distinction. You know it perfectly well, and I don't think I need to explain that further. Immigration is very different to being a national minority. Thank you very much.
Next speaker, Onorevole Estara.
Ms. Estaras Ferragut, please.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, President. Thank you, Commissioner. Cultural and linguistic diversity of the entire EU and respect for people who are members of a minority, that is a founding value of the EU. Conserving and developing European culture is a priority. Cohesion policy has been an investment instrument, potentially one of the most important of the EU, to make sure that there aren't differences between regions and to make sure that we have a more equitable development and growth of the EU, where cohesion is a reality, socially, economically, and territorially. Now, the regions have a territorial aspect, and that is why there's an effort for investment with those regions that struggle the most. So outermost regions, mountainous regions, amongst others. Now, as Commissioner Fito said in the Regi Committee, and as the Commissioner has said here, there has been a lot of change since this petition and the changes that took place after the pandemic, with inclusive growth where cultural heritage and regional cultural heritage is a priority, with the participation of all of civil society. Cohesion policy is the best antidote to building up bridges and gaps. Now, I am from the Balearic Islands, and I love the language that I speak there, but also Spanish. Languages should always be a driving force of communication. Now, there are those who are enemies of languages, those who impose language on us, and those who ban languages, and those who also mark differences with them. Thank you.
Please.
Dat Plattdüt moet blijven. Und eine starke
We need a strong cohesion policy. Soon we'll be getting the new Commission proposals for the new MFF. So the sentence I spoke was a regional language that stresses that this is a living thing, and we should respect this wherever this exists, in my region or anywhere else. People have their languages and their traditions, and they want to keep their local cultural identities. Often they don't get much support for this, and this is where cohesion policy can come in. It ought to be finally able to support these regional identities, cultural languages, minority language. They're not a luxury. They are part of a common European identity. We need a policy that supports this as well, with visibility, with access, with promotion and support for cross-border cooperation, and with room to live in your own way and speak your own language. Plattdeutsch should remain, and all other minority languages as well. This will only be possible if this is allowed to play a major role in the future MFF. So I call on the Commission to do this, because what makes Europe strong is its diversity and its cohesion at the same time. And this is only possible by working side by side with the regions.
Thank you. And now our colleague Menet.
Vielen Dank, Frau Präsidentin.
President, cohesion policy is an important instrument to support regions which have different cultures and which have diversity. It's also a question of the legitimacy of the EU and promoting that. Cohesion policy also helps rural areas. If we look at today's challenges, particularly in rural areas, there we're dealing with a lack of skilled workers and generational renewal and rural exodus. So there we need to provide support, particularly in places such as Saxony-Anhalt, which has transformed over the years. But the same applies to cross-border regions. They deserve support. What's clear is that we need to look at the division of funds, and the regions must be able to decide on how they spend their money. It's only at local level that we have insight and experience on where the money should be spent, where it's urgently needed. So let's continue to have a policy that is in favour of the regions. If we have Europe, it's thanks to the diversity of the different regions. Regional decision-making on cohesion policy must not be done away with, because it would mean that we won't have acceptance of Europe in people's hearts. Thank you.
Thank you. And now our colleague Lopez Aguilar. Go ahead.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you. Commissioner. Well, this is a citizens' initiative. In 7 member states, at least, it got 1 million signatures, so it actually deserves our respect. It's in line with Article 11. But I think that there's a lot of different supported opinions on this as well. With just 1% of GDP in the EU, the difference between the means and what's planned is totally unacceptable. Secondly, you can't do more with less. You've got new ambitions, defence, security. That can't be done to the detriment of the of social policy and cohesion policy. And also Article 154, the provisions there, and social policy, which wants to make housing a right in Article 162. And basically, we need to actively involve the regions. This model of governance is multi-level, and it involves also the regions and the peripheral areas, including the Canaries. There's a clear message. Regional policy has to be part of the social policy as well. That's the whole purpose of Europe. Thank you. Thank you. Our colleague Vincenz.
Grazie, Presidente. Madame la Commissaire, l'égalité est au...
Commissioner, equality is at the very heart of the European project. However, 50 million people who come from minorities are ignored by the Commission. You were given the mandate of helping all minorities when it comes to historical peoples who've been living in Morocco for years. We don't hear anything from you. But they're 90% of our cultural diversity. They defend their identity and their language with dignity. Tyroleans, Bretons, and a lot of other people. A lot of them are subject to discrimination, losing the language. What we see in Belgium with the German-speaking minority shows that it's possible to do something. Not a single one of the 11 citizens' initiatives have actually got as far as a legislative proposal. It's time to act, and this particular initiative deserves that you act.
Thank you. Our colleague Gomes.
Senhora Presidente,
President, cohesion policy is a major achievement of the European Union. The aim is to ensure that no region is left behind. We deal with historic imbalances thanks to the single market, and the aims of the cohesion policy are laid down in the treaties because they're so important. So, the priorities of the cohesion policy cannot be made subordinate to other policies. And we're not just talking about economic justice here, we're talking about social justice, territorial justice. It's about the very trust of the citizens in the EU. That's why I call on the European Commission to step up its level of ambition for the cohesion policy when it puts forward its proposal next week. Particularly, we need to focus on ESF+, the European Social Fund, and we need to have funds to deal with Europe's housing crisis. Europe's housing crisis is one of our most pressing issues in the regions. We need more cohesion, more solidarity, and more Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Kohut.
Zjednoczona w różnorodności.
We are united in diversity. This is the motto of the European Union. This is the idea. This is the theory. In the last term, we have successfully voted through the minority self-pack, but that was vetoed by the European Commission, which is a major problem for our minorities. I am from Silesia. We represent an unrecognized minority. In the last census, 600,000 citizens of Poland said that they feel Silesian. 500,000 say that they speak Silesian, and now the speaker is switching to a different language. He's switching to Silesian.
Nie są my żadnymi separatystami, nie są my ukrytą obcą niemiecką, chociaż ze mniejszością niemiecką poradzimy żyć bez haj. I genau tak samo chcemy, aby nos Ślązoków mieć we zocy. Domagamy się zrozumienia.
We want recognition, we want understanding, we want our needs to be accurately financed. We have had ethnic cleansing conducted in Silesia by the Soviets together with the Polish communists. Now we want to be recognized as a minority, ethnic minority, and our language to be recognized as a minority language. I'm calling upon President-elect Nawrocki to recognize Silesia, to recognize our language. I'm calling on to the Commission to recognize the minorities. We are dying in silence.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Gomez-Lopez. Thank you, Madam President. We are talking today about a European Citizens' Initiative, and this means that it's not coming from any government or any body. It comes from our citizens. Citizens who said that they value our cohesion policies, but they would want them to respect the diversity and the wealth of our different territories. As someone from Valencia, I know what it means to have a cultural identity and my own linguistic wealth within a member state. And so I can tell you that if citizens is calling for more decentralization, how can the Commission, for the next financial framework, just have a centralized approach? There's no sense to that. You should have listened and should defend cohesion because it doesn't impose uniformity. It respects the diversity which unites us, and it listens to what we speak. Thank you. Thank you. And now Mr. Cristea.
Cohesion, what a beautiful word. Beyond cohesion, the question is, what kind of games do we choose to play? Do we want to play the game of European cooperation, or do we want to undermine ourselves, to dig our own grave, and then look upon the others around us, how they develop, and we stagnate? I come from Bucharest, from Romania, and in the year 2000 in Romania, the GDP of Bucharest was 6 billion euros. This century, in 2024, Bucharest produces more than the entirety of Bulgaria, more than the entirety of Serbia or Moldova. Bucharest produces 50% of Hungary's GDP. Why? Because Romania has chosen NATO, has chosen EU, and has chosen to play the game of European cooperation. Competition, when you believe you're more special than the others, leads nowhere. Winners are the people who choose to cooperate and who have more allies. Good luck.
Eriksson.
Thank you, Ms. Eriksson.
Tack för ordet.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. In many places where industries are being set up and there are more jobs, it's a little bit too quiet at night. Young people move out, and we have to wait for infrastructure to be set up. Industry gives work, but it is life between the houses which really makes a place alive. We know that culturally is just as important in the rural areas as in the cities, but we see that we have a concentration on the capitals and big towns. We don't want culture to be determined by where you live. Both in Sweden and Europe, we have to have a policy that sees the whole of Europe and the whole of the countries, so nobody's left out.
Thank you. Now move on to Catch the Eye. I would ask you to respect 1 minute so that everyone can speak.
President, Commissioner, if we look at the Canary Islands, over the last 5 years, it's grappled with many problems. Persistent migration, the volcanic eruption on La Palma, droughts, and the fallout of climate change. We in the Canary Islands are like every other European, but we have many more difficulties because of our geographical situation. The islands of the European Union are a need, a necessity. We need to ensure that these islands are connected. We must be able to move on in green terms, in digital terms, as part of a transition. And we need to have employment, particularly for young people. We also need to ensure that we can fully benefit from EU support. The Canary Islands, like the other outermost regions, needs cohesion funds to be maintained. In addition to this, we should increase cohesion funds so that we can meet our priorities. Only by doing that will we be able to move forward at the same speed as the rest of Europe.
Ferenc.
Thank you. Now, colleague Ferenc.
Madam Chair, Madam Commissioner, this citizens' initiative is the common fight of the autochthonous minorities who are 50 million within Hungary, but it also provides hope for minorities living outside the European Union, sending the message that the EU takes a step forward to stand for national, ethnic, cultural, religious, linguistic minorities' identity, especially cultural, national and linguistic characteristics can be of a protective nature, just like in the Ukraine war, where Transcarpathian Hungarians are dying day after day because of bombardments. We cannot bring back our dead, but it's important to stress that the mental integration of those who stayed alive cannot work in cultural neutrality. So the support mechanisms should take this account in Ukraine as well.
Now our colleague Mulečík.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen. I want to refer to a historical matter. In 1940, by decree of Hermann Göring, the Association of Poles in Germany was made illegal. It was dissolved. Their property was taken over by Nazi Germany, and 80 years after, Germany still refuses to give back that property. They do not want to rehabilitate the activists of the Association of Poles in Germany. Now, as many as 2 million Poles live in Germany, and Germany still refuses to recognize them as Polish minority. So, no money is given for learning the Polish language, and in German official instances there is no information available in the Polish language. So, Commissioner, I hope you address the German Chancellor and ask what is happening with the Association of Poles in Germany and why the Germans don't want to give back the property they stole during the war.
Grazie. Diamo ora facoltà di intervenire all'onorevole Aggi.
And now our colleague Aggi Regoy.
Gracias, vicepresidenta. Nos alegra.
Thank you, Vice President. We are delighted to see that this initiative is here being debated in the European Parliament today. It's faced a lot of obstacles on the way, and the Basque Nationalist Party supported it in 2014. Many of us believe in our own European national regions, and I think we will defend them. Defend Article 3 of the treaty everywhere, which talks about respecting the linguistic cultural diversity. Our national identities, cultures, minority languages have to be recognized as being part of the strength of Europe in this new enforced Europe we need. We've got cross-border regions, macro regions, national regions. Reality goes well beyond feelings, and the EU must respect them. There's a possibility of taking the lead in this and strengthen the European process from recognition of different national identities and, of course, the regional situation. Thank you. Our colleague Shishwaka now has the floor.
Thank you very much. In general, I do appreciate citizens' initiatives. However, in this situation, this one was initiated by Hungarian ethnics from Romania. I would like to tell you that Transylvania is Romania, and we do not agree with autonomy, because in Romania, ethnic Hungarians have the most rights you can imagine. We are a great example of how we respect the Hungarian minority, from language to the way this language is only spoken. This is the only language spoken in certain counties in Romania. A colleague of mine was talking about the Pride salt mine. This salt mine, which is administered by a Hungarian company, is financed by money from Hungary. I can admire Viktor Orban for what he does externally, but I want to tell him that not in Romania. Transylvania is Romania. And let's see what's happening in Ukraine. We have Romanian minorities in Ukraine regions. They are discriminated there. They're not allowed to speak Romanian. They're not allowed to pray.
Onorevole Brnjak.
And now our colleague Brnjak.
Hvala lijepa. Europska građanska inicijativa snažan je.
Thank you. European Citizen Initiative is something that really incites Europe as diverse with different initiatives. But we have to invest in this diversity in the Union because we have to have concrete programs for development of education and so on and so forth. And I call here upon the Commission to do and support this initiative in order to support European cultural diversity. Thank you.
Thank you. And our colleague Kinkinen.
Arvoisa puhemies, mikä tekee Euroopasta Euroopan?
Thank you. What makes Europe Europe? Is it all the offices in Europe? Is it the Eurocrats? No. Europe is made up of European peoples. Being concerned about preserving languages and traditions is justified, but they should not depend on federal funds and European funds. This is something that comes from the nation states who look after their own traditions. we're going in the wrong direction. We have more money for defense and the eastern borders, but we don't have unlimited funds. We need to have a restrictive migration policy. We need to fight Islamism, and we need to take real action rather than having more European funds. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the Catch the Eye. The Commissioner now has the right of reply. Commissioner, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, honourable members, for this very rich debate. The Commission takes good note of the point you raised. The Commission, as you know, is currently reviewing the instruments and safeguards for partnership and non-discrimination in the light of this citizens' initiative, and we take the principle of non-discrimination very seriously and will assess how we can help advance the goal of the initiative. And I would like also to reassure you, we take our citizens' concerns very seriously. Since the launch of European citizens' initiatives in 2012, the Commission replied to 10 successful initiatives, those that collected over 1 million verified signatures, and committed to follow-up actions for 9 of them. Our diversity is our power, united in diversity is our motto, and the respect of the rights of persons belonging to minorities is one of the founding values of the EU. And all European regions are eligible for cohesion policy support. The cohesion policy funds can support specific linguistic, cultural characteristics. And as I said in my introduction, the EU Regional Development Fund already invests around 22 billion euros in inclusive growth and integration of marginalized groups. 2 billion to support communities with specific linguistic and cultural characteristics, and a further 5.2 billion in cultural heritage initiatives. So I will conclude by saying that the views expressed here in the European Parliament will feed our assessment, and the Commission will present its conclusions by 4 September. Thank you very much.
Grazie a tutte e a tutti.
Thank you to everyone. The debate is closed, and we are going to suspend the sitting for a few minutes, and it will resume with the votes at 12. Thank you.
La Présidente.
Can I ask you to take your seats? The sitting is resumed. Dear colleagues, as we mark 1 year since this legislature began, I want to thank you all, your staff and the Parliament services for your tireless work. When Europeans voted last year, they asked us to build a stronger, smarter and safer Europe, and that's exactly what we've been doing. We've accelerated reforms, we've passed legislation to improve people's lives, safeguard our industries, protect our neighbours and our way of life, and I'm proud of what we have achieved together. So thank you very much to all of you. Our work continues. Next week, the Commission will present its proposal on the multi-annual financial framework in our House. This period will be critical as we negotiate the EU's long-term budget to match people's priorities, and I'm counting on all of you to help get it right, because regardless, and this is important that we say it today, regardless of where we sit in this chamber, we are all here for the same reason, to make a real difference in people's lives. So thank you again, dear colleagues. Let's keep delivering. Now, we will wait 1 minute, 30 seconds until everyone is seated. Okay, so we are going to vote on a motion of censure on the European Commission. Those who are running in, I will let you run in so that you can put your card in the machines. Quite a lot of members still running in. This vote will take place with a majority of Parliament's component members, and 2/3 of votes cast is required to adopt the motion of censure. So we will now vote on the motion of censure. I'm speaking slowly on purpose while everybody is still running in. We will vote by roll call, and the vote is open. There are still a lot of cards being inserted, so we will keep it open for a while. Vote is closed. And it is rejected. Now I would like to inform the House that I have received a request for a point of order, and I will give the floor to Ms. Özlem Demirel.
Thank you, President. Article 118, paragraph 2 is what I'm referring to. We had an amendment that was declared inadmissible. We said that sending people back to Syria when there is violence against the Alawites and Christians, when you have such a situation, it is not responsible to send people back. And your decision to reject this amendment was a political decision, not a technical one. We really put our finger on the pulse. We have a transitional caretaker government in Syria which also has members of Al-Qaeda in it. And it is benefiting people such as Trump. And it is affecting the Middle East. And you are trying to send people back. You are trying to send refugees and migrants back at any price. We pointed this out as the left in a resolution. And then we've been told by you that this had nothing to do with the resolution, but it is relevant to the revolution. This is about protection of people. It's about protecting asylum. That is not politically arbitrary. We are defending universal human rights. This is cynical EU policy. And President, I'm sorry, but your decision on our amendment, declaring it inadmissible, that was a political decision. We find that unacceptable. We will continue to point out what's happening.
Thank you very much. I can assure you that we take our job extremely seriously, especially on declaring and questioning the admissibility of amendments. Your amendment was declared inadmissible according to Rule 1881A of the Rules of Procedure because it does not directly relate to the text which it seeks to amend. So we move to joint motion for a resolution tabled by 5 groups on the case of Ryan Cornelius in Dubai. We vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. We vote now on a joint motion for a resolution tabled by 5 groups on the arbitrary arrest and torture of Belgian-Portuguese researcher Joseph Figueira Martin in the Central African Republic. This is a vote on resolution as a whole by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. We vote now on a joint motion for a resolution tabled by 5 groups on the urgent need to protect religious minorities in Syria following the recent terrorist attack on Mar Elias Church in Damascus. Amendment 14. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Amendment 15. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. 17. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. 11. By roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Paragraph 4, Amendment 6. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 13. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 12. By roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Amendment 12. Adopted. Amendment 3. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Check. Amendment 3. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 1 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 4 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 2 in 2 parts, both by roll call. First part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Second part, vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 8 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 9 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 10 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 16. Who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Check. 16. Vote is closed. Adopted. We vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. We move to the report by Antonio De Caro on amending Regulation 2023-1542 as regards obligations of economic operators concerning battery due diligence policies. Amendment 1 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 5. Who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Amendment 2 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 3 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 4 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 6. Who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Amendment 7. Who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Amendment 8. Who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. We vote on the Commission proposal by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. It is adopted, so the first reading of Parliament is closed. We move to the report by Hildegard Bentele on the future of the EU biotechnology and biomanufacturing sector, leveraging research, boosting innovation and enhancing competitiveness. I give the floor to the rapporteur for 2 minutes.
Dear colleagues, I would like to thank you wholeheartedly for hopefully the broad support for this report on the future of biotechnology and manufacturing in Europe. With this report, we are a big step ahead of the European Commission. We are defining the criteria for our European Biotechnology Act, which will see the light only in a year's time. Not least the swift development and production of COVID vaccines in Europe has shown us the strong performance, the innovation potential and the huge productivity of this sector. But biotechnology is not only about pharma and life science. Thank you for subscribing, hopefully, to the broad scope we are advocating for in this report. This report is about a growth strategy for Europe, about further igniting, but also about faster commercializing innovation, about securing supply and value chains, about smarter financing, about globally compatible and lean regulation, and the speeding up about our internal procedures. Thank you, colleagues, for sending in the first year of our mandate this clear signal of willingness to be competitive in one of the strategic future industry sectors, which provide solutions for our economic and food security, for sustainability and for public health. Let us now make sure that the Commission follows up closely, and I hope to see you all full back of energy back in September.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Bentele. We move to Amendment 3 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 3 by roll call. Vote is open. Amendment 4, sorry, 4 by roll call. 4. Vote is closed. Rejected. Paragraph 10 in 2 parts. First part, who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 14, who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 18 in 2 parts. First part, who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 21. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Check. 21. Vote is closed. Adopted. Paragraph 24 in two parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 5 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Paragraph 32 in two parts. First part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Second part. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 34 in two parts. First part. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 1 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Citation 7. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Recital 8 in two parts. First part. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Recital N. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 2 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. We vote. Congratulations. We now vote on a joint motion for a resolution tabled by 5 groups on tackling China's critical raw materials export restrictions. Amendment 2 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 3 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 4 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 5 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 6 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Paragraph 13, Amendment 7 by roll call. Vote is open. Yeah. Paragraph 13, Amendment 7. Vote is closed. Rejected. We vote on the original text in two parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 8 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 1 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. We vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Have a good afternoon.
Nice break.
Happy birthday. Thank you. The sitting is suspended. It will resume at 3 o'clock with the Commission statement on endometriosis, Europe's wake-up call and the gender health gap.